Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the senior reading. This is my favorite event of the year, even though it's also tinged with bittersweetness because these fabulous seniors who are going to share their work with us tonight will be graduating, unless there's a consensus from the audience that we should fail them and hold on to them for another year. Yeah, maybe not, but I certainly am going to have a really tough time saying goodbye to so many of you that I've known and worked with. And then I look forward to celebrating all of your work this evening too. So this is, we'll go in order, in alphabetical order. Everyone will read for about 5 minutes. And then at the end, we will announce, the Literary House will announce the winners and runners up of its 3 writing prizes. But first, we'd like to begin with the land acknowledgement read by Professor Kesey, the Associate Director of the Rose O'Neal Literary House.
The Rose O'Neal Literary House acknowledges this region as the original homelands of the Wycomice, the Choptank, and the Nanticoke tribes. We acknowledge their painful history of genocide and forced removal from this territory. We honor the indigenous peoples still connected to this land, and we are committed to making our community a more equitable and inclusive place to gather and learn.
Thank you, Professor Kesey. So first up, reading tonight will be Leanne Beckley.
Hello, everyone. Tonight I will be reading an excerpt from a creative nonfiction piece. The sections of my piece that I'll be reading from are in response to Kesey Lehman's book, Heavy. I want to give a content warning as this piece references body dysmorphia, so please take care. Let your hair down. When I climbed on that stool to cut off my hair, it was a rejection of my body. Everything about me felt small and incapable. Nothing about Rapunzel was small. Her hair was long, and she was able to escape her tower. Climbing as a form of getting where or what I wanted was not an unusual pastime for me in my childhood. I remember climbing out of my crib as a baby and getting pig marks along my stomach where I hurtled my fragile body over its edge. I climbed out of the straps of my buckled car seat when I was too weak to unclick the red plastic square the size of my hand that triggered my release. I climbed out of my car seat straps through the half-open car windows when my mother locked me in after I fell asleep during our ride. I climbed on stools to reach shoes, toys, or towels. I climbed on sinks and counters to reach glasses to get myself a drink of water. Climbing was more effective than calling out to be assisted or rescued. Even when my calls were heard, I was often met with a response to the effect of, "I left you here for a reason," or "You can do it yourself." My tendency to climb things rather than ask for help would not have been so long-lasted if I didn't stay so small. I wore tight skin clothes from the time my mother allowed me to pick my outfits in elementary school until the end of high school because I was convinced that baggy clothing made me disappear even more. This was hard to achieve given that 90% of my clothes as a child were hand-me-downs from my cousins, who always bought long-sized jeans which stopped above their ankles. When I asked my mother if we could go shopping for new clothes, she told me, "You'll just grow out of them in a year." I never properly grew into my cousin's jeans, let alone out of them. Looking young is a side effect of being small. And when the carefully curated outfits were failing at showing my age while hiding my size, I started wearing makeup. The makeup was more noticeable and less effective than the tight clothes. My mother barely wore makeup, and my older sister was too young to be wearing any. I dug through the Walmart clearance bin-like drawer in our bathroom until I found mascara, eyeshadow, and blush. The first time I wore it, my mother stopped me as I entered the kitchen to ask if I had makeup on. I lied. I don't know why she pretended to believe me. She responded, "Good, you're probably too young to be wearing makeup." My hair, my name, and my body were things over which, at some point in my life, I felt I had no control. I wanted to change my name as a child, thinking it would empower me to experience the adventures I saw Rapunzel experience in her movie. To climb up on that stool and cut off my bangs was what I thought would bring me closer to her magic. I thought that maybe that climb would free me from the tower I lived in, or that I had too much growing on it, that needed the weeds to be shaved down to the root, trimmed, or groomed to be less obstructive and less obvious. the tower my mother tells me she wishes she had, and the tower I wouldn't wish on anyone. The tower that doesn't need supernatural hair to escape from, her tower that was never the force controlling her. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. And I apologize that I need to turn my video off occasionally because my internet connection is apparently, like my hair, unstable. Next up to read is Joanne Bond. Please welcome to the mic.
Thank you. This piece I will be reading from is from a workshop, is part of an assignment that I did for flash fiction as a writing exercise. It is called Iceberg Story. The floor of the shelter was hard underneath Kayla's body, and the night air was chilly and damp. Her only source of warmth and comfort came from her sleeping bag, which she wrapped tighter around herself as she tried to sleep, but it could never replace his warmth. Kayla squeezed her eyes shut. Don't think about it. The reason you went on this hike was to forget about him. But there was a part of her that could not forget, no matter how hard she tried. Each time Kayla removed her pack from her aching shoulders, she would yearn for his hands to massage them. But it was nights like these when she missed him the most, these cold, dark nights that threatened rain. Kayla didn't even know how far she had hiked up to this point, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had put enough distance between her and the town where it had all gone to hell. She felt herself gradually relax and drift off to a dreamless sleep in a void of comforting blackness. Kayla's mind began to wander as she slept. A series of text messages from someone she did not know, but figured it was just a friend. The long nights spent alone, waiting, that night in the bar. Her mind was brought back to consciousness, but Kayla continued to doze. Damn it, she thought. Think of something else or you'll never get to sleep, and you won't finish the hike. Kayla turned over and made herself comfortable again. That had been only 2 weeks ago, but to her, it still felt as though it had happened yesterday. She didn't know how she would continue the hike with it constantly resurfacing in her mind, or how she was going to forget it completely.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Next up to the mic, the virtual mic at the virtual lit house that we're all imagining and missing, is Mackenzie Brady.
Hello, everyone. So I'll be reading one poem, but before I get to it, a trigger warning for sexual harassment and assault and an overdose. And a little bit of background about this piece is that in high school, I worked at McDonald's from the end of my sophomore year until the middle of my senior year. And this piece is a hermit crab, so it takes the shape of the thing that it's supposed to be, and hopefully that translates as I read it. So, what my therapy bill would look like as an old McDonald's receipt. Cashier, Mackenzie B., November 2016, 11:35. One order of one phone number on the receipt I just handed out the back window from the boy in the back seat's mother on behalf of her son. $1. One order of two guys who come through the drive-thru twice because the first time I won't give them my number, so the second time they threaten to sit at the window until I do. $10. No, they leave after I tell them I have a boyfriend. 20 orders of one old man tells me I should smile more. $20. One order of one coworker stands too close when he ropes me into a conversation about this best sex position. $4. 16 orders of one polite conversation with the parents of people I am no longer friends with. $16. One order of one coworker gets morning sickness at the beginning of her shift but doesn't know she's pregnant yet. $1. 20 orders of one coworker tells me not only about their current sex life, but their entire sexual history. $20. Add, I am expected to contribute to the conversation. One order of one ambulance picks up a man who passed out on the bathroom floor with his pants around his ankles after he overdosed. $15. Add, the only male employee at the time posts a video narrating finding him. Add, later the man's mother comes through the drive-thru when she sees her car in the parking lot, and we must explain what happened. 3 orders of 1 coworker justifies vaginal discharge and the use of vibrators to her other female coworkers, $9. 16 orders of 1 Sunday morning an old friend's grandfather buys 6 burritos and 6 medium black coffees for the other people at church, $8. Add 6 mild sauce, add 6 creamers, add a variety of sugar and sweeteners. 1 order of 1 guy walks up to the counter shirtless, thinking that if he flirts with me, he'll get his meal for free, $8. No, I had just seen him kiss his girlfriend. 8 orders of 1 coworker's last day when I am forced to hug them goodbye despite not being friends, $16. 1 order of 1 visit from my then boyfriend's mother and she tells me not to tell him that she stopped by, $1. 7 orders of 1 overheard conversation about the managers being in open relationships with their husbands, $14. Add learning the rules and conditions of their relationships. 5 orders of 1 polite conversation with my ex-boyfriend's stepdad about how I have been in the 2 years since his stepson and I broke up, $5. Combo. 5 orders of 1 moment of absolute panic as I see my ex-boyfriend's little brother looking at me with the same expression of disgusted sympathy as he did the day he walked in on his brother standing in front of me, dick shoved into my mouth, $200. Emotional upcharge. Subtotal $349. Tax $20.94. Total $369.94. Cash $400. Change none. Now hiring.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie Brady. Our next reader will be the fabulous Diannely Buscarino.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Mackenzie, that is impossible to follow up, but I will do my very best over here. So I'm reading a flash fiction piece called Bookends. And something else is no longer here. Not the stray cat under the porch, she isn't here. Not the faded shutters that kept sunlight out of the living room, they aren't here either. But something else is missing. It must be the bookends, the black and ivory ones that Mom would always slide across the shelves to seal her collection into neat, precious rows. I could see through the window that they aren't there, see the way that the books that now line the shelves lean on each other lazily. Dad sold them at a garage sale right before we left, and Mom didn't even have time to mourn them before the 3 of us packed everything into the van and were gone. She hasn't mentioned them since. But something else is no longer here. Something else is missing from our old house, the way something is missing from our new house. I came here to look for it. But the leaves are here. It's as if the new family doesn't care about them, about the way they spill over the hedges and settle smugly over the front yard. The family doesn't seem like the caring type, Dad had said. And now the leaves preside over the house like it is they who own it, indulging in their victory as they suffocate the grass. Dad and I used to rake them every weekend. He worried about what the neighbors would think otherwise. We raked them into piles, competing to see who could make the biggest one. And when Dad would win, he would watch as I jumped into his pile, staring at my 12-year-old scrawniness disappearing under the foliage. The touch of the leaves made me cringe, and when I would sink to the bottom of the pile, the darkness would press me with the echoes of their dead, hollow scratches. But when I would eventually fight my way up to breathe and see Dad smiling like a maniac, I knew it was worth it. Mom always made hot chocolate for us when we finally went inside. She would hand us our mugs in the shade of our living room and ask who won our contest, even though she knew the answer, and smile with only her mouth as I told her about jumping into Dad's leaf pile. One time she asked me if it made me sad when I didn't win, and I said no, I just liked jumping into the leaves. She readjusted her bookends and left the room. We could never rake up all the leaves though. Every weekend, a few remained tangled in the grass. Dad would scrape at them until they broke up into pieces too small to be anything but fragments. And he would turn away with that wild look in his eyes that he got when he yelled at Mom, and I would try and rake up all the pieces so that he wouldn't be angry anymore, but I never could. Every weekend we raked, and I would follow Dad around, cleaning up the mess, and all he would say when Mom handed us our hot chocolate was that we didn't do a good job. When we moved houses a year later, we traded trees for fences so thick that the neighbors could no longer see us. But even without the threat of leaves entering our yard, the wild look Dad would get when he tore up the grass remains on his face as if we never stopped raking. Except there are no more leaves to rake, and instead of jumping into piles, I repaint the fences, and Mom no longer makes hot chocolate because her hands only grasp each other after Dad sold the bookends, and it's as if he knows the leaves are winning. He would be furious if he saw them now. The grass is as invisible as I was when I would sink into Dad's piles, when I would lose his eyes behind the deadness of foliage. The leaves insulted him with their enormity, suffocating the yard until it could no longer breathe. They would scatter when I jumped into them, and Dad's maniacal smile would grow as he watched me crawl across the grass to pick them up again. His smile would be gone by the time we went in for hot chocolate. Mom's smile was only on her lips. And something else is no longer here. The leaves are here, but something else is missing. Missing like hot chocolate, like grass, like bookends. Something else is missing from this house that is dying. Something is absent. Maybe it was never here. And something else. Something.
Thank you, Diannely. I want to pause just for a second to say thank you to our ASL interpreters, Stephanie and Rachel from Deaf Interpretations, for helping us to make this event more accessible. And if you need to and haven't already, you can pin them on your own. We think that's better than spotlighting right now. All right, thanks again, Diannely. Next up is the incomparable Leah Duff.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Nice to see everyone's faces tonight. I will be reading a poem that I actually wrote last year, I think, but perfected this year, called Virtue Since Eve. Virtue since Eve. Patience is a virtue. Try it if you can. Seldom in a woman and never in a man. Something a Catholic grandmother has said to elder daughters or about elder sons with a prim sort of irony, wearing a paisley blouse in her pale rose print living room that smells of hotel mints. What a trite little saying. Write it in your careful Catholic school cursive, smudging the ink from your pen on the heel of your writing hand. Make the letters pretty enough to belong on grandma's wall. But on second thought, you say 20 years later, that all depends on how you define patience. Patience as the mythical virtue of never frustration, as willingness to wait for the indeterminate ever. No one but the haloed, coveted, loathsome, virginal Madonna has ever had such patience. You're thinking of the saccharine, robin blue version of her who lives in the trembling gazes of men, not the pitied version of her who lives dust-stained, barefoot, pregnant, sore and weeping on an ass's back in the mind of every Catholic mother. But patience as the ability to feel your frustration, bottomless, seething, and tamp it down like tobacco in a smoldering rosewood pipe. Patience as holding your knotted breath until the moment when you think you're alone and the subject of your patience, frustration, rage, love, fear won't see you, then smearing your mascara and putting a metaphorical hole in the drywall. Never a physical hole in the drywall, though. That's evidence, and you're not a patient person if you leave behind evidence of the little rust-stained moments when you're not. Patience as fury swallowed like the humiliating burn of bad liquor. Patience as waiting, guiding the shaking pen through the tender strokes of its Catholic school cursive and rewarding the eventual moment of epiphany without punishing anyone but yourself for all the time wasted before. Patience, thus defined, becomes graffiti on the inside walls of your veins. Grandma's particular brand of prim irony, scratched into the chipping paint with a ballpoint pen, marks so ancient they've become epigenetic. Patience, thus defined, is a virtue no longer mythical and no longer seldom in the woman, though still never in the man. Patience, then, is a song in the blood of every person who has lived the experience of the woman since Eve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah. And by the way, your Zoom background is definitely one of the best tonight. So
Thank you.
congratulations on that as well. You're very welcome. It's really quite striking. And next up to the virtual mic is Victoria Gil Gomez. Please welcome.
Hello. I am going to read a fiction piece called Tossing after Yasunari Kawabata. When he catches her this time, only reaching out one arm to pull her into his chest, it's the gasp that surprises her. Any moment is an opportunity to escalate, so she does everything she can not to touch him. Get a bigger bed, he mumbles. His breath shivers down her scalp, one that masks the stench of tears that rattles from the springs, from dreams you think are memories. When he asks her in the morning, already up and blinding himself through the shades, how she slept, she notes, I lose sleep because of you. He takes her hand, his fingers linger on the top of the chair from which he sits a little longer for her sake. She looks up at him, sickly, and lulls her arm in a detached effort to meet him where he wants to be. He begins to glide up her forearm only to be caught. She says, your hands are yours, your jaw is yours, your chest is yours, but I can't hear anything except for an echo of several different hearts. She pushes on the pads of his fingers. Without words, I don't know most nights when I wake up above the break of water, who is next to me. What scares her when the sky paints the buildings outside her window salmon is the memory of salt. A dead salmon, pinky, flapping, but so ready to give in on her back. A shadow polishing her shoulder with a breath, a heave, a grunt. She curls into a ball, having the cool wall against her back, like her mother's hand is better than another heartbeat that stops at her scent of oleander. I care about the way I love them. She rests more peacefully alone with the chipped ceiling watching her, without her body painted against the spread as she finds the penetration more off-putting. Maybe you should take your melatonin, he laughs, and learn to be asleep forever. Maybe you should swallow all your pills so you can stay awake forever, she spits. Nothing lives under my bed but dust bunnies, and even if they did grow into creatures, I'd sneeze them out of existence. When she gets up and gives up the chance for a minute more, he tugs on the edge of her shirt like summer birds. Why can't we just stay like this until I won't be here anymore? He whispers quiet. His whisper quiets the birds outside. His voice rolls up her skin, familiar to a child. It's not you and I understand that much in here, but you snatching the pillows gets feathers all over the bed. My face becomes powdered and I suffocate from my own dreams. However, I will find the restraint to urge to dip too fully into your chest in case all the pillows go up in smoke. Let's start a fire and use my abdomen to cover the suffocating dreams, she says. She gives in to him. He adjusts to an elbow and pulls her close, lets him take her, and she concludes that this is comfort. The dark fingers that snatch your ankles in the middle of the night do not resemble mine, he says. Every crevice of your body that creates a shadow, I promise you, you are no longer haunted. Their routine began to feel like brushing one's teeth, putting on socks and then shoes, a conclusive goodbye until they finally had to say those words. She believes in this. When he started to toss, She waited to stare at the chips in the ceiling, but noticed his inching away from her. The invisible thread. She tucked her arm under his head to cradle and her other arm over his waist to clasp her palms. She cannot help, despite the dead salmon parts of her, to forgive herself, to forgive the doubt of any possible goodness. She whispers into the shadows of his empty pillowcase. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. If all of you missed Victoria's star turn as Aphrodite in the dramatic production Or, let me tell you, you missed a thing of beauty, because Victoria is, of course, a Libra. So those things go hand in hand. Next up is the inimitable Nicole Hatfield.
Hello. So I have 3 very short poems, and the first one is titled Whale Fall. When a whale falls, its body becomes a home at the bottom of the ocean. I bet the fall sounds like the drop stones of disillusionment. I wonder whether each carcass is fully furnished, or if the fish fight over occupancy and divvy up the organs like old lamps left in a dead person's house. What makes the whale a home? I once saw my mother give our dog Valium, felt our tile floors turn to dust as our house sunk a little deeper. We breathed minnows and rested on a decayed seabed, our walls covered in bloated smiles and sand-scrawled apologies. Before our house became a whale, it was a water tower in the middle of suburbia, the tallest point. It was more sky than sea, with a tank that could hold at least 1 whale. When the tower was torn down to build our house, we watched water spill into the streets. We climbed into the skin of a whale and fell asleep with its blubber against our chests, its salt pressed into our eyes. And then this next one is titled Raised on Horseback. When I was a girl, I broke my hymen while riding a horse and came on the wildness of it all. Ride me like a horse, baby, the boys will learn to say. They will ask for leather whips and leather boots and leather skin. I will show them a half-dead mouse, my rope-burned hands, how I can't make a fist without blisters, splitting. I've braided horsehair into a bra, sewn my thighs to the saddle, which is to say that I held a nakedness against the animal and pulled the sound of running hooves into my womb. Then this last one is part of a series titled The 12 Permaculture Principles, and this is Principle 12, Creatively Use and Respond to Change. The kids are crushing antique teacups, snorting powdered ceramic, paving roads with tea leaves. They grew up on asphalt and will die on a dream of the sun setting against their feet, of running westward. They've memorized family members by the drugs lining their eyes. To cope, they take up gardening, teach themselves hugelkultur, make a raised bed over rotten wood, bury a kerosene lamp and rocking chair, and wait 20 years for them to burst. The kids rest their heads on pillows made from scab decay and stale light, their backs smooth with slugs, fingers tied in vines. They grow food from filth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Those are beautiful poems. Next up is the fabulous Elizabeth Hill, who has worked alongside us in the Lit House for years. Thank you so much for letting us get to know you, but also for keeping the Lit House open for so many students. We will miss you, definitely.
I miss the Lit House. I'm very sad not to be there right now, but I'm reading excerpts from a nonfiction piece I'm working on right now that, as it kind of is right now, just an amalgamation of various men I've had to encounter. So I've been wanting to write to you for a while now. I suppose you'll think it's old-fashioned. Do you remember when you told me about some stupid show with humor that I've never felt amused by? Remember telling me about it, telling me to watch it simply because you knew I didn't like it? Do you remember I said, I'll give it a go, and you laughed at me? You said, Don't say that, you sound like my grandma. And I laughed too, but said nothing more. It was a while ago, but I remember. The other day, someone said your name. It may have been your name, may have just been a name that sounded like yours, and my ears heard what they wanted. And it reminded me to write this. Last winter, I walked home after a double that dragged. It was cold, the kind that makes you angry and frustrated, that makes you think the wind has a vendetta against you, because you can't think of any other reason why it would be blowing so hard, pushing you back and making every step heavy. I didn't have gloves or a scarf. You had taken them with you. My coat was thin because I refused to wear the expensive one, the one that I bought at your suggestion. I hadn't thought of you in months, and yet that night as I walked home, angry and miserable and shaking, your face came to mind. I just decided then I would write this. Would I tell you about all the thoughts I had after the fact? Or would I exhume the remains of old battles and write all those things I hadn't had the strength to say before? Those words that I grew, even as they frightened me. I wanted an apology. I wanted to know that you regretted it, hurting me, using me, making me feel like a ghost with no grave. Closure has no definition, and I don't subscribe to it. Sometimes I think moving on is simply a matter of catching up, of understanding. There was a time when I was happy and involved, and then I was still involved, but not happy. Happiness hasn't quite returned, but we've been making acquaintances, and I should think she and I will be getting right on. I don't ponder the fact that you may know her too. You and what you did and said and the lasting impact of it all are not enough to comprise a whole chapter of my life. I thought you might be at the time. Even when I was delusional and led on and around and through all your hurdles and needs, I was aware, or at least partly aware, of the fracturing. I was fractured internally. I fractured my world externally in an attempt to fit its shards into your closed fists. When I would offer an explanation, a detail of myself and all the various versions of me that had to go through or around others' mistakes, I thought you were listening, that you cared. My pieces shattered to the ground, but I just assumed that that was my fault. And maybe I thought control was something I had to hand over, offer up on a silver platter, wrapped in cuffs and ribbon, exposed. But maybe it's something I have to let go of, something to transfer, to take it away from my mind, let it away to my limbs, move the way you thought you needed someone to force upon you. I would write about a pain I thought only I could feel, a wound that trembles and aches to its core, breathing with you, always there, always felt. The weight of existence alone, more than alone, without. And the pages were filled with longings and thoughts and half-formed hopes that could not flourish in my own refusal, staring at an endless realm of all the same. And now I could write about what it's like to be where I thought I never could, but it's easier for some reason to remember the pain I used to feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm just going to take a pause here to recognize that we have some alum among us. And so I just want to say thank you to our alum for joining us for tonight's reading. It's really great to see you. This is my segue to also saying that our December graduates are welcome to read the senior reading in the spring of that graduating semester. And so our newest alum is Rebecca Kanaski, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome her to the mic.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. And I'll be reading from a nonfiction essay titled Wildfire Season. I woke up today in Sheridan, Wyoming, and went for a run, taking advantage of the lack of blazing sun, uncommon for summer in any part of the West. Lungs burning more intensely than usual, I focused on anything else on the horizon. I looked where the mountains should have been. Where had they gone? Fog, I thought. I later learned it was the smoke from wildfires in California that obstructed any view, any sky that day. Fires were also burning on the Montana-Wyoming border, only 40% contained. Outside for over 30 minutes and my eyes burned, but there was no smell of smoke. Ash had not started falling yet. We were thousands of miles away from the uncontrollable rage, and still it took our sun, turned everything into reddish orange haze. 2 days later, it looked as though someone had tried to cover dark mountains in an oil painting. the base outline barely perceptible but faintly ominous, lurking behind the haze as if to say, "You will miss me." At sunset, the sun burned like a singular hot coal before fuzzing into blues and grays that never quite became black. Regardless of the fires, life never truly changed in Sheridan. I went running in the mornings. My mother baked chicken in the oven she hated. The unnecessary sprinklers came on at 5 and again at 8. It is enough to know the mountains are watching even when we do not see them. It is the 5th day of gauze-wrapped sun and no mountains to wall our small town. I sit in the park and read at a picnic table between 2 cottonwoods for a change of scenery and chance at motivation. The air was smokier this morning, yet the outline of the base mountains slightly more visible. It is nearly 10:30 and the sun is starting to break with a red glow. The fires have changed our times of day, our weather. A man on a bicycle has circled the park 3 times. Each time I hear his gears shifting, his chain screaming as he comes back around, laughing each time. He does this again and then leaves. I don't know why. In a few hours, the sky will be perfectly white, like bed sheets propped up as a background. I ask my mother what we should do for dinner and she lets me pick. Though the white is no different than the usually blue sky, there is a discomfort here, much like cotton balls in the mouth or bandages on joints. There is a vastness in the blue not perceptible in the white. I feel stifled here, as if the fires are close enough to heat the small house we have moved into. I talked to our new neighbor, Ralph, who would more likely use that phrasing for us. He says, in a week, the smoke will clear and we will all complain about the hotness of the sun. He jokes that we will miss the wildfire in all its novelty, and perhaps he is right. But the smoke will not clear for another 3 weeks, and the fire will continue to burn for another 2 months, possibly more, definitely more. People visiting Sheridan ask if there are normally mountains visible from here. Is this normal? They ask. Online, some comments, "These are the bighorns you are missing," with pictures of the peaks. We stare at the view on HD computers and remember the feeling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becca, and for joining us from Montana as well. Thank you very much. It's great to see you. It's also great to see the imaginative Sarah Bowden joining us tonight to read as well. So Sarah, take it away.
Can you hear me? Okay, cool. So hi everybody, I'm Sarah Bowden. I first want to thank the readers and Dr. Hall for putting me in on such short notice. It means a lot. So I'm going to be reading my flash fiction piece, Uncanny Valley People. I'll tell you why I don't trust people from the Uncanny Valley. No, not the time those camp counselors tried to kill the bass drummer. This was before that. The camp incident only cemented my distrust. Don't get me wrong, I'm pretty ambivalent about trust, but there's a difference between not trusting someone and not trusting someone, and they're squarely on the wrong side. I had to take a business trip a few years ago, back when I worked for Ian Snow's ice factory. This was before Mrs. Snatch poisoned him for breaking off their engagement, obviously. I ended up staying a night in the valley at the Infinite Hotel. There were some 50 people staying, so at least I didn't have to keep getting up and changing rooms. I went to the hotel bar and got a drink and started talking to this guy with a green glass eye. He told me he had a job interview the next day to join the police force. He had half a drink and a quarter of a drink and an eighth of a drink, and his tongue loosened up. Me, I tend to get quieter the more I drink. He told me, "I have to kill someone, man. That's part of the interview." I asked, "Who?" Because how else do you respond to that? He said, "They provide a person. Guy got arrested for, I'd rather not tell you what for. Something real bad. This is his death penalty. I gotta kill him and cover my tracks." Takes one to hunt one? Of course, I wondered what he did, but I didn't press. So they say, during the interview, I'll tell them where to find the body. They'll try to trace it back to me. But most killers would hide the body or get rid of it. Then I thought back and realized I actually hadn't seen that very often. You remember the hit and run over by a reindeer case? They just left the body for anyone to find. Sad. Well, they gotta save some time. Does the victim know you're coming for him? I wasn't sure which was worse, knowing or not knowing. Even now, having seen examples of both, I'm not sure. I don't normally chat it up with strangers at the bar, but come on, you'd be curious too. Oh yeah, we spoke about it over payphone last night. He told me his underlying medical conditions and the locations of his valuables. I got someone real easy. Weak heart. It's always the weak heart in fiction, ain't it? I couldn't confirm or deny that because I don't read the kind of fiction with weak-hearted characters. I thought of giving him something to mess up his blood pressure, but the toxicologist could figure it out. I hear stories of people getting a shock and their hearts giving out. That's how my friend did it last year. She ran over a woman's child and the shock of it killed her. I thought of giving him a good fright. But I'm not a very frightening person, you agree? I admitted he wasn't. He was mousy, scrawny even, with a small voice. I said to myself, I got nothing frightening about me, nothing interesting about me. And that was the ticket. Well, if I tell you, you might tell the police. I said, no, of course not. I'm leaving tomorrow morning anyway. I'm good at secret keeping. It was a job requirement working under that miserly son of a bitch. The key is knowing when to tell and to whom, like now telling you. The guy had a few more fractions of drinks before he spoke again. He lined up his empty glasses all in a row, very precise. I hate precision. I prefer the mess. Finally, he said, I guess it'd be nice to have someone appreciate the ingenuity. He leaned in and dropped his voice. I'm gonna bore him to death. I'll call him tonight and tell him all the details of my old mundane life. And if I forget something, I'll describe my drab little room in the most minute detail and fill in the gaps with unhelpful bits of advice and watching paint dry until he croaks. It's very nice, ain't it? No weapons, no mess, no disguises or alibis. And how many people you know who died of boredom? I think it happened to one of the mayors of my hometown. How will you avoid dying yourself? I got some puzzles and adult coloring books to pass the time. I just hope it's painless. I don't want him to suffer. He paid his tab for one drink and left. I got another drink because the phone unnerved me. I mean, most murderers get personal. They work for it. That's what whatnot killers do. You know what I mean. Clarissa shot old Nick herself. Snatch made the arsenic sandwich. Kira used her own car to commit first-degree murder. The haunted house ghosts push their friend down the stairs. They bring a weapon or whatever and get close to the victim and put in the effort to do the job. This guy didn't even give his victim that dignity. So that's why I don't trust valley people. They can't even kill someone normally. At least I thought that before those crazy counselors tried to burn Josephine alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I will always remember Frost Degree Murder, I will say. That made me laugh. Thank you so much. Up next is the marvelous Michelle Lee.
Hi, I will be reading a two-part prose poem called Contrast, and I will say that there is references to violence here. Black on white, punched holes in basement walls, shallow threats with a never-ending emptiness. We'll hide it, she says. We'll put something over it. She's a whirling dervish on the tiles, a step forward, a turn left, a sudden jerk on her neck, her body a beat behind her eyes, searching for something big to drag in front of the hole. She's pleading, planning, protecting. She's my sister, 3 years older, and before I knew pain from a father's hands, I knew pain from hers. Her hands slide against the chipping green paint, and she reaches the light switch. The room goes silent, eyes and ears. Look, she says, it's not even there. I widen my eyes in the dark, but see nothing, nothing, nothing. My heart is still banging, raging against the cage of bone. My nerves are stretched across the hole of a drum, and everything that hits it amplifies like saw teeth. To hide something, we get rid of everything. Silent film horror show, a spill of blood, or chocolate syrup. Smeared ink from left-handed scribbles, black hair, wet, tied in a white towel. Pool balls that are thrown, another hole in the wall. So my hand scrambles across chipping paint. Let's hide it. Let's hide everything. Flash forward to now. 300 miles isn't far enough. An ocean isn't far enough. Sometimes it seizes me, filled with rage and screaming I've never once let go. Anger and exhaustion and something else. Maybe grief. Mostly grief. My older sister now lives 2 hours away from home, and I am so happy for her. I am 300 miles away with an expiration date. I am not thinking about return flights. I am a dark stain on a footpath, a monster of a mistake, but quickly drying. I have to be. A shattered glass of Beamish or a cathartic vomit on the streets, fading. I wonder how far I need to go. It's easy to be ripped back. Just one look into an empty shop, with massacred walls, work ladders, and lamp cables, exposed wires and dusty craters. Remembering is the easy part. I flinch. A sweater stained with beer, dark sweat spots between my shoulders. I am trying to make the most of it. I'm trying to never come back. Neon lights strike and shatter, and fog makes illusions of filling this empty room. Let the music play. Why not? You are a dark stain on darker paths. The lights go out, and I am not even there. White on black. A new start, a fresh start. A bruise covered with Maybelline Fit Me Foundation porcelain. Make yourself lighter, lighter, lightest. Maybe you'll even float. I don't know how to buy makeup, but I know enough. In my white on black world, I rip out pages of notes that aren't perfect. I paint over notebooks for any semblance of me, of understanding how I fit in. I say that everything is fine. It's easier to text home than call. I cross rivers, I hold my breath. I wonder how the height of the water can change so rapidly. Once upon a time, an older sister threatened her sisters with a knife. Years later, scattered memories, I learn where she learned it from. I learn it too. Therefore, no one is to blame. White on black, we paint it over. You want to make something stand out? Just scream. Just lose your voice. Scream over running water and it takes you with it. Fact. Bandages come in different colors, usually for skin tone. Fact. The American Delta blues are based heavily on work songs. The ping of metal against railroad tracks, a metronome to focus on. Don't think so hard. Just move. Fact. Many Irish folk tales do not have women protagonists, unless they are a monster or a hero. We see the same sort of dichotomy with European witches and princesses, men and women, father and daughter. Fact. There are no words that could smooth this over, so I stay silent. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Fact, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Next up is Justin Nash. Justin was the first person ever to apply to the Cherry Tree Young Writers Conference and has attended every single one of them ever since. And after graduating, I don't know what we'll do without you. So please give it up for Justin Nash.
Thank you. I think obviously you have to end the conference now since I won't be there, but that's not for right now. I have two poems for you all. The first of which is from a series that uses GPS coordinates to indicate places where sort of strange, uncanny things have happened to me. But I think that that's all that needs to be said. So this first poem is titled 39 degrees, 17 minutes, 40.4 seconds north, 75 degrees, 37 minutes, 16.8 seconds west. It has always been a long drive home, and this asphalt cross with its tired streetlights, dangling like lanterns in a road dark night, is the closest thing I have to an exit sign. It is a sharp cut, the kind that lets you go straight on or ease around its edges, but nothing worth calling a turn. This is the point at which I realize on every trip, if I am hit, there is someone close enough to find me. I am watching only for my light when all the lights turn green at once, all directions free to go. There is no one on either road. I do not worry about collision. Still, this cannot be a coincidence. I question calling the town, phoning into the Department of Transportation, but stop myself mid-dial, wanting this to be mine alone. It will never happen again, I am sure. Should I be wrong? Maybe it is for the best. Every direction safe for traveling home. And this second poem is titled That Thing, That Thing. You're going 68 down the interstate in your blue soccer mom car, and you have no children with you, but your mother is complaining about your sad indie music the way she complains about the school you chose and the sport you quit and your weight because of it and the girls you will never date. Maybe this is why you're so depressed, she says. All this music just sounds like whale noises. So you change the song for the fourth time, and this time doo-wop, that thing, comes on, and she looks at you and she just starts singing. And she is singing with a freedom that says she's seen that shit live. And for the first time in weeks, the two of you aren't fighting and no one is hurting. So you start singing too about that thing, and all of those things that are really just the one thing. And the three of you, your mother, and Miss Lauren Hill, are as in sync as you've ever been. It ends like everything does, and you are again reminded of how fast you are going. She snaps right back to telling you about what's missing in her life. And this time it's the minute and 29-second difference between the radio edit and the album version. You know, the version with the talking at the end. Then, a year later, you discover entirely by coincidence that your dreary morning walk just so happens to be the exact length of time it takes to listen to Doo-Wop, That Thing, Gordon's dub, in full, the song you knew because of your mother, and you're walking in the building when the man you can only guess is Gordon says, "She poetic, she killed you," and you realize that's another conversation you've never had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was really nice to hear that second poem out loud. It was a former Pfister Poetry Prize winner, as I recall. Next up is the brave-hearted Nat Slaby. Please welcome them to the mic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. So I'm going to be reading two poems. I want to thank two members of the audience because they helped me write and edit specifically one of these, and that will be the first one that I will read. I do want to say that there's a content warning for anyone who's kind of icky about bugs. There's some visceral imagery of that, and also there's some violence. Okay, so I stutter yet again. My mouth opens and fleas jump out, tripping over themselves as they nestle in your ears, too fucking small to catch, and I have no way of even warning you. I have had a tarantula crawl up my arm and snuggle in my hair, with the soft steps of a many-legged cat, and a daddy longlegs dance along my palm and enjoyed the creature waltz. If you could open me, maggots shall be glistening in my intestines, eating as the words stop and start, and the creatures burrow into my throat. I miss digging in the dirt or using a hose to create a stream of mud, bringing up worms that would twist around my fingers, gentle and slimy as I sat in the backyard's ruin. My lungs flutter, the wings of a cockroach, their legs crawling around my ribs, earwigs biting into my trachea. And so I stutter, yet again, my body leaking bugs. Past the fairy rings. There is a forest where the trees whisper as animal bones frolic just out of sight, and the girls of the village are warned to never enter or they will be stolen away and their lives torn apart. Their bodies are to be eaten by the wolves and witches that lust for the taste of the young thigh or unbroken heart of an unwedded girl, wandering with innocence in their smile. Their names shall be stolen by the fae that will steal their faces and lives, leaving blood smeared on their lips and a metallic taste on their tongue, that will increase until they birth a changeling. Their souls will be ripped from them by the demons that crawl amongst shadows, that preen inside the river's reflection. Those girls will have emptiness behind their eyes and be consumed from within. You might not believe the warnings, you might pack yourself and your friend, you might venture into the depth of the woods, you might laugh at the stories you heard, but you will turn to her and find her gone, and hear her scream from far away, yet it will seem too close. You'll run away or move towards her, but you will only find yourself lost, no matter what direction you turn. You might not find yourself taken by creatures, but by the forest itself. Tangled in the flora's embrace, the vines growing beneath you taking control, making you want to lose your mind. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Nat. We have 3 readers left, and the first of this last ultimate triumvirate is Jackie Smith, whose Zoom background is also, like herself, very fabulous.
Thank you. So I have 3 short pieces of poetry, and they're all focused on children, which is a topic I'm very interested in as an educator and as a mom. There are instances of implied violence in the first 2 poems. First poem is called In This Family. Boys are princelings in their cotton candy crowns, wholly unprepared for the rain. The little girls are like gumballs, oh so sweet and empty, or prickly and underfoot, meant only to be consumed or trod upon. The second poem is called Feral. Teacher said I'm feral when she talking to the other teacher. I don't know for sure what that means, but I got a pretty good idea. Meemaw told teacher that some kids just can't help themselves. I know I sure can't. And here is teacher with candy and stickers and prizes and deals. Grown-ups don't work that way, so I know this is a trap. She's like that witch in the woods with the candy house. All of them are, except they look like ladies in Meemaw's shopping books. Still feel like they're gonna eat me up. Their perfume get under my skin, laughs like broken glass falling out the window. They make me twitchy with their smiles, all those bright teeth. They want me to draw pictures and say, yes, miss whatever her name is. I'm wondering what I'm gonna eat tonight. I got to move around or I yell, and then they call home, feed me to wolves. And they say, I'm feral. And the last poem is called Tell Me That Being a Mother Gets Easier, she said. I can't and I won't. I am haunted by backward glances, lost gloves and pacifiers still fresh in my mind. The swaying of my hips in idleness, a telltale sign that once they lived there. You envy my full spoon drawer and unbroken sleep. I envy the hot cocoa mix in your carpet and the Sharpie faces on your fridge. I'm trapped in their picture frames, aging doubly as they grow. Broken hearts do not mend with chicken nuggets, and peace can no longer be bought at the store. I became the model mother with my first, and my second burned that artifice to the ground. My son needed a battering ram. My daughter made me flow like water around her. Now there are no more fights over moldering cups under the bed or kicked cactuses on the floor, just begging for an I told you so while biting my tongue in express care. His chase for perfection and her long hours mean we can't yell at Alex together or play hugger mugger on the living room floor. Shouting Neil Armstrong by myself just isn't the same. He's a benevolent ghost in my house now that nibbles at the food and slams the drawers, his laugh finding me through the walls and the ductwork. She and I plan our escapes together. Roles reversed, she now praises my homework and brings me plastic toys that she knows will elicit my stubborn smile. Thank goodness, I've spent the same lines on each because they won't admit it, but they'll count them and weigh them as they have my love and their presence. Go ahead and envy my white couch while I yearn for their backward glances and smiles, telegraphing to me across a room of their peers, I love you, Mom. I long to be a broken down goddess again. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was a great ending to the last poem, especially. 4 years ago, I offered a poetry pre-orientation program for entering students, and this next reader took that week-long experience and wrote her first poem. And so all I have to say to all of you in attendance tonight is you're welcome. I take full credit for Megan Walsh. Up at the mic next.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be reading 3 poems tonight, some of which you may have heard before, but I thought they meshed well. So my first one is Dream of Beekeeping, and it's after Amy Nezuka Matata. In the dream, our planet is saved from extinction, and we don't even have to do anything. We can bathe longer if we please. Leave the lights burning. In this dream, the bees pity us, our mass ineptitude, the lazy hate we house for each other, the unearned hope we tend. They rise from dead, dry cracks in the dirt. Little striped saviors ascend to surf the skies. Hive-minded, they pulse yellow and black through the clouds, the sun burning their fuzzy backs. Some pollinate, rain yellow powder from above until the earth bursts green. Some stay up there in the stratosphere, replace the ozone layer with glass wings, shed tiny rainbows onto the pavement. The buzz is so loud it stops traffic, disrupts the radio waves. A tsunami sound, each bug hum a symphony. We watch below for the attack, wait for them to bomb dive, swarm back to earth in fury, crescendo to a sting. We can't imagine a hive in harmony, can't imagine we could ever hold us together, save ourselves. It sounds impossible. Cooperation falls to smaller species, our hands too full of honey. The next one is Suburban Landscape Post-Rapture. In a cyclist's testament after a crash, dying is the hollow seen through one shut eye. When we disappear, the world fills the space in. Fine mowed grass lawns grow into weeds. Birds stir in their mailbox roosts. Stray cats cross the vacant roads, gutter to empty gutter. Opossums swing their tails around bike racks. Tennis court fences rust. Cars hide in garages. The walls that separate suburbia from the silent freeway drown in ivy. 4-bedroom houses yield to dust. Cockroaches cram their hard casings under toilet seats. Families of mice move into the piano, chew out the keys. Snake spines twist up the staircase. Termites hole through cabinets. Fox pups curl up in wardrobe drawers, wake later to claw at the carpet. The only sign of us is in the bookshelves, the dishwashers, the DVD cases, the bathtubs, the basement fridges, the medicine cabinets, the tiny baseball gloves, every empty thing, everything meant for holding, everything we let go of. And the last one is Rural Landscape Post-Rapture. Looks nearly the same from the roads. Gas stations boast low prices and sit empty, spring diesel leaks. Alfalfa fields rot and cloud the air yellow. Pre-programmed church bells chime the hour for rows of vacant pews, rows of corn, rows of white pickup trucks stalled outside town. The flags are useless now. Raptors tear them up for red-blue blankets. Jesus 2020 signs litter the lawns. Billboards shout about hell and heaven to no one. Silverfish prosper. Mites burrow deep into every quilt. Silos fill and fall with beetles. Chicken factories become chicken cities. Wild dogs run through farms in quick succession. The land moves on fast. It stretches out wide between highways, eager to forget us. It's easy to think we were never here, if not for the roadkill, those smashed tire carcasses, until finally the turkey vultures come, and one day, even the gravel forgets and grows into grass again. This is the only thing that is saved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan. That was really beautiful. I had the honor of taking the next reader and our last reader on her first plane trip across the country to Portland to attend the Association of Writers and Writing Programs conference. This writer will often say question mark out loud. And so instead of saying, is it Tamia Williams question mark? I think we should say it is Tamia Williams exclamation mark closing out the show. Welcome, Tamia.
Oh my God, thank you. So I will say my greatest flex is like having so many talented peers. So thank you all for like helping us grow throughout our college careers. So I'm gonna be reading 3 prose kind of meditative nonfiction pieces. The first one is called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 mile. In adulthood, she still feared thunderstorms. She worried about neon shards rupturing a tree, setting a forest ablaze, burning what little she claimed. She worried about tornadoes too, those racing, inescapable pits. In high school, she heard someone say that lightning doesn't touch even ground. It only struck the similar. Later, she learned that that wasn't guaranteed. Nothing is perfectly calm and flat. Even if it was, lightning could still attack. Her teachers offered other reassurances. Or tornado sounds like a freight train. If you don't hear that, you're fine. But she didn't know what sound came from freight trains. Count the seconds between lightning and thunder. It'll let you know how far away the eye is. But knowing disaster looms overhead doesn't lighten its rampage. Still, she held her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 mile. In middle school, her mom said that each lightning strike was God blinking. She wondered why he did it if it could kill. Her mother said that thunder was him laughing. She wondered why he laughed, knowing the sound was scary. Her mother told her that that was normal. Fearing thunderstorms? No, living in fear. That doesn't matter, though. After all, heaven awaits after death. But what does heaven look like? Something good. Just pray and have faith. So she did. Lived and breathed and prayed in 5-second intervals. My next one is called Lorem Ipsum, which is the filler in like a document template. Tradition is a powerful concept easily broken like a branch, beaten like a switch. Traditions in my bloodlines, my ancestors walking along my veins from heart to hand, guiding my fingertips to a false choice labeled my own. Tradition's a powerful, anonymously made normal, defining normal. Normal may be just a state of mind, a reiterated whisper in the ear that infects the brain, the memory of a parent's frown. A normal can be spawned within days of our birth, within the hearts of those who cradled us. Still, we live by them, twisting our wants and needs, struggling against the reins injected in our veins, but losing in the end because it's just too painful. Because there are better pains than isolating yourself, sweeter pains, softer pains, ones that, yes, demand absolute obedience and warrant violence outside of it, but those bated breaths have approving parents. Protective pains, ones that thump like ancient gongs along your back, because even children are punished for straying away. Still, a better pain than a prickling forest of eyes waiting and begging for your enforced demise. My last one is called Spirituality Can Be, but is not limited to, Progressive Christianity. I do say the formal N-word, by the way. So I am spiritual in the way that I am raised to believe in big G God, in the way that tithes were obligated, praying obliged, in the way that fasting is sewn in with purging and guilt with holy trinities. I'm spiritual in the way that I drowned in long skirts and sleeves, in the way that joints were kept secret, in the way that if a husband wanted, there was mention of or suggestion of sexual violence, my bad. In the way that if a husband wanted it, there was no debate in where or how or mercy or maybe another night. I am spiritual in the way that I am deemed a heretic for endorsing what's normal, as I deem each woman's rightful choice whether to accept someone sliding in or pole pushing out. As I deem that social workers work and ice is frozen. I'm spiritual in those beliefs as they're deemed political and religious, though they're anything but. But even so, those occasional songs latch onto me. Words of consuming fire, sweet perfume, pull at my lifeline, shaping the Negro and Negro spirituals. Sometimes in somber pews, rarely in a broken church shell. Sounds of people relied and lying on the spirit and spirituals to survive for centuries. They laid in fire, strewn amongst aggression, and prayed that a high observer saved. That big HE watched with kindness, as I now hope for too, in the way that I sing my Negro numbers, hum the hymns, and remain spiritual. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamia. And thank you again to all of our readers. Another big round of applause. I'm just gonna do something like that for all of us. So that there's sound. You guys did awesome. I also want to say and give a shout out to my colleagues, say thanks and a shout out to my colleagues who are here tonight, not only in English, but also I've seen art, business, sociology. And I'll just say on behalf of my colleagues that you all have done such amazing work. You've grown so much over the last 4 years. And it's been an honor to play some small role in the fabulosity and radiance that you've all developed. It's been really incredible. So thank you again to the readers. We are at the point of the evening where I have the honor and pleasure to announce the winners of the Literary House Writing Prizes. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who submitted. It's hard to toil and craft and spend hours writing and writing and writing, and then to send that work out to be judged. It takes a tremendous amount of bravery. And so I just want to say thank you to all of those folks who endeavored to do that. It's amazing, and that's sort of an achievement in itself. So the first award we will give is the William W. Warner Prize for Creative Writing on Nature and the Environment. It's awarded to the Washington College undergraduate who shows the greatest aptitude for writing about nature and the environment in any genre. The prize is named for and was endowed in the honor of William W. Warner, author of the Pulitzer Prize winning book, Beautiful Swimmers, Waterman Crabs, and the Chesapeake Bay, based on his experiences living and working among crab fishermen on the Chesapeake. According to Mr. Warner's wishes, the judges give preference to, but in no way limit their consideration to, students who write about the natural history of our Atlantic shore, from the Canadian Arctic to the Gulf of Florida. The winning piece receives a cash prize of $500. It was judged this year by Meredith Davies Hadaway. Meredith designated one piece, an honorable mention, and that goes to Leanne Beckley for her piece, L'Oeuf. The 2021 winner of the Warner Prize for his essay, The Only Sound, the Overflow, is Justin Nash. Let's have a round of applause for both of these writers. Congratulations to you both. The Literary House Genre Fiction Prize is awarded to a Washington College undergraduate for the best work of science fiction, fantasy, mystery, or horror. The winning entry receives a cash prize of $500. This year's entries were judged by writer Matt Bell, who named as honorable mention the story we heard previously tonight, Uncanny Valley People by Sarah Bowden. The 2021 winner of the Lit House Genre Fiction Prize for her piece, The Secret Arts of Self-Healing While Escaping White Fragility, is Tamia Williams. Please give it up for both of these writers. Congratulations to you both. And last but not least, the Pfister Poetry Prize was created through the generous donation of Jude and Miriam Pfister in partnership with the Academy of American Poets, one of our country's most distinguished and important literary organizations. It carries a $100 cash award, and winning poems are considered for publication in American Poets, the Academy's biannual journal. First, I just want to say thank you to Jude and Miriam for supporting poetry, and our students here. They are with us tonight, as they always are, because they're just steadfast supporters. Thank you so much for helping us honor poetry and budding poets. You are fabulous. I can't wait to see you guys in person at some point soon. This year, the judge for the prize was Diannely Antigua, who selected a winner and 2 runners-up, another testament to the stiff competition that the entries gave. So the runners-up for the Pfister Poetry Prize, I'll announce them alphabetically. First, Justin Nash for his poem Braided Diptych with Everyone's White Guilt, and Megan Walsh for her poem Church Basement Pastoral. The 2021 winner of the Pfister Poetry Prize is awarded to Nicole Hatfield for her poem, which is based on the 12 permaculture principles and which is entitled Principle 2, Catch and Store Energy. We heard Principle 12 tonight, I believe. So congratulations, Nicole, Megan, and Justin. Give them a big round of applause. Yay! Checks in the mail, y'all. Actually, I'll be getting it in the mail. So thank you again for everyone who is writing, who's documenting these really difficult times, who's creating beauty in these dark, dark days. We need it more than ever. and my hat is off to you. Thank you all for coming tonight. And I'm gonna go cry that these seniors are gonna graduate. We hope that we'll get to see you at an English reception soon too. Thank you all for attending to the beauty of writing tonight. Take good care of yourselves.